Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
Welcome to a Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So your host today, my name is Karen Roberts, and I basically help women find their mojo. Everything that I do combine the mental, the physical, and the spiritual perspective. So each week on this show, my guests will share their stories and give out advice from either a mental, a physical, or a spiritual perspective, or sometimes a combination of all three, just like our guest today. So, Caitriona, am I saying your name right?
As it's phonetically spelled, but it's Caitriona.
Caitriona.
Okay, an Irish spelling.
So, welcome. If you can just share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story, please.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Caitriona Ellis. I'm originally from Ireland, but I live in the Isle of Man now for the last 6 years. I have 3 kids, and who I home educate 2 of those. And I am currently working in the space of financial wellness, specifically with women. It's a passion of mine, having been initially in 2015 in a place of financial desperation and no clue as to how to get out of that, and pretty depressed at how the trajectory looked, and thinking, okay, what can I do? So I set about a path of discovery around financial and all things financial and money based, and it's brought me to where I am now, which is in a place of wanting to empower women with the education that I've received over the last number 5 or 6 years, and empower them and take away the overwhelm so that they also have that kind of upbeat sense around money. So yeah, and that's my absolute passion. I absolutely love talking to women about this stuff. I love working with them. I love seeing the transformation. And to me, it's just, it is as important to us as oxygen. We do need money for all things that we enjoy doing, and understanding how to work it is really, really important, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. And when you say you work with the mental, the physical, and the spiritual, how do you mean? How does that cover all those three?
Well, in the sense that, to me, whilst money is a physical, tangible thing, to me, I love a bit of woo-woo. And I think woo-woo and money actually work really well together. And one example of that would be, to me, your relationship with money is really, really important. And if I always use the analogy of a friendship, if you have a friendship which, you don't return the friend's calls or turn up when you're supposed to meet them, etc., then that friend is not going to hang around. So money responds in the exact same way. When you treat it with respect, when you showed leadership, then it responds in kind. And that, to me, there's always a woo-woo element. I work with visioning with money, having a really clear, compelling vision of what financial wellness means for you, and it's always different to each of us, which is always amazing. And it's not just about products and accounts and shares and all that stuff. Yes, there's that stuff there too, but the fundamental piece, it actually kind of twins nicely with what you do around wellness and mindset around money. Because if your head's in the right place, and a lot of us have really disempowering beliefs that we acquired from childhood, from our primary carers around money. Wealthy people are greedy, money doesn't grow on trees, lots of limiting beliefs that limits our possibilities. So 2 people in the exact same situation, one will see opportunities aplenty and the other will see nothing but scarcity. So woo-woo is a big factor in all that I do with financial wellness. I've got the product stuff too, but that's a tiny part of the equation, in my opinion. Woo-woo is the big part of the picture, in my experience.
Yeah, getting the mindset. You're so right. I mean, I think more people do tend to have what I'd call a poor money mindset, and you're right. It can just come from just flippant comments, when you're younger. Yeah, money doesn't grow on tree, all these things, that which is strange, that even though I'm aware of, I wholeheartedly admit that I'm sure because you sort of almost repeat things sometimes without thinking about it, saying that maybe your mum said to you in certain situations, and it gets passed down without actually people really thinking about it. Would you agree? Or not really
Absolutely.
understanding the power of those words and how it can actually affect someone, right?
Absolutely, wholeheartedly agree, and we all have them, including me. You start to kind of use the analogy of an onion. We're all going through layers and layers, and I've done lots of work in my money beliefs, but I still have stuff that I need to clear and get out. So you're constantly kind of working through the next level and the next level, and we all have those, because whether they came generally from our primary caregivers or we were taught them at school, we were restricted as to what a job means to be. Is entrepreneurial exploits really supported in school? Not so much, in my opinion. It's you're trained and you're put through the system to prepare you for your job, and a job is generally making somebody else rich. So the whole system doesn't support financial wellness either, in my opinion. And getting into the side of, from a kid's point of view, they're not educated about that stuff either. So there's so many levels, but for me, my absolute passion is working with women around this, because often as well, I found in my experience working with clients is that as females growing up, going through the school system, they're often pigeonholed as being not good at numbers. So therefore they equate that in their head, directly or indirectly, that, I'm not good with money. And countless times I've had that conversation and I have had those words come out of their mouth. And then they proceed to tell me about this amazing spreadsheet that they have and how they manage their money, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, hang on a second. These things don't marry up. You are absolutely killing it with money. You're doing an amazing job. So get rid of that crap. So females often are on the back foot when it comes to anything numerical based. And I want to blast that stuff out and
Change
go,
it.
no, we all can do this, and empower women to do it. And I'm very active in the property space as well, and I want to bring more and more women into that space too, because that is another area that's dominated by males, and not male bashing to any degree. Big fan of males, but I don't want to. I want to support the women in this, and that's where my heart is. Like, I want to support the women to do whatever it is they want, and to never make decisions based financially on what it is that they want to do. So I'm going through a divorce myself after 22 years. And the reason that held me back from making that decision was because I was financially dependent. I resigned from my nice, cushy corporate job back in 2008 when I had my first child, and no regrets on that front. But now, going through a divorce, being financially dependent up to about a year and a half ago when I started doing this stuff, that held me back from making that jump with that relationship. And I see several women around me at the moment, and I seem to attract those that are in similar positions and are afraid to make the leap because they're financially dependent. And I never want to see women stuck in positions like that. I want them to make the best decision for their relationship, for their life, for themselves, but never based on money. So get rid of that, get all your money stuff in order, and then make the best decision, whatever that is for you and your life. So
Brilliant, brilliant. I mean, I think that happens so much, which is always very, very sad that people
it
feel a
is.
little bit stuck because they have had, and like you say, like with yourself, your job, you give things up to have a family, and and then so it just seems so hard when later on, all of a sudden, yes, you are fully dependent, and so it's all about really empowering women so that they can
Absolutely.
make the right choices for them, and yes, rather than it actually be a purely financial one as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. When you have that stuff nailed, and to me, it always comes back to education, and having arming yourself with the education that you need, which generally it's often put to us as it's a very complicated area of investments and shares and equities. And I'm going, no, you know what? It's actually really quite simple when you boil it down. You can make it super complex if you like. I don't have time for complexity. I keep things really simple. They work really well for me, and that's what I want to empower women with. Going, you know what? You can do this. I didn't think, I did previously think that it was super complicated. I learned otherwise. I set things up so that they're automated so I can get on and do what I want to do with my life, and not spend, hours and hours poring over spreadsheets and figuring out what to do and what not to do with my money. It's automated. It's easy. And that's what I want to do with women, is educate them as to very simple ways and in a low cost way that you can, start to turn this around. And it's about habits, about creating, just like through your own work, is just embedding really healthy habits around your money, and where possible make those really simple, and they're automated, so it becomes, as part of your routine, as much as brushing your teeth, or eating however many times you do a day. Simple things like that to just make it routine, and then you just get on with living your life and living your best life, never with um, any challenges financially. And you just, challenges arise, you know exactly what to do. You have things prepared exactly how you want them to be.
Right. And isn't it? Do you find it frustrating that in school this stuff really isn't spoken about? And my daughter's sort of gone into that side of things. She's in sixth form, just doing business and finance as the add-on. And you just think, well, surely, really, why isn't every child going through doing a finance course to understand about interest and, how bad credit cards are, or, because it does seem that all these things that are life skills that they need, or that everybody needs when they leave school, and they're just coming out of school without any of them at all, unless they specifically choose to do that, which just seems to me just, yeah,
Yeah.
crazy,
Yet they're
crazy,
taught
crazy, crazy.
fronted adverbial whatever and this and that, grammar, which, the vast majority of them will never ever use. Yet they don't know how to do a tax return, set up a bank account, how to
No.
use a credit card to their advantage, make savings, nothing. It just annoys the living daylights out of me. And I've been part of a program at the moment, building case studies, which is being aimed at families, because frustratingly so, my perspective from a mindset angle is always, look, the system frustrates the hell out of me on so many angles. But then I go, okay, right, I can turn my attention to that and what's not there, or I can actually take the power back and go, you know what, if the school isn't going to provide it, I model it to them, and they understand simple things, with my kids, between a need and a want. I never say no to them. That doesn't mean I always say yes. It means that I say to them, okay, well, they're looking for something in particular. If it's something I'm going to give them, fine, it's a yes. If it's not something I'm going to give them, I encourage them to come up with ways they can get what it is that they want. First of all, figure out if it's a need or want. And if it's a want they, want to fulfill, okay, so put it on your birthday list, put it on your Christmas list. How can you raise the cash? So simple things like that. And I think the responsibility is always going to come back to the parent to model financial wellness, and to open conversations around money, so to never make it taboo. My kids will hear me regularly talking about property or investments or whatever, and they will ask me different questions as I'm going. And it's just open house in our house. No, there's nothing off limits. I will explain everything to them. So it is frustrating it's not provided in school. It most definitely should be. And there's a big chunk of kids who will never get that because their parents don't have the wherewithal to give them that information. And that's wrong. That's really, really wrong. So I'm working a couple of projects to try and address that at the moment. So let's hope that the
Yeah.
tide will turn on that over time. And I'm as well coming at it from the angle of the parents. If I can get the women I'm working with in a different space with it, then that's going to trickle down to their families too. And so, just keep trying to take actions on a daily basis to try and turn it around.
There you go. And it is the little things that I have noticed. One pretty handy little tool. She was all excited the other day because on her card, where she had, I think it was just a simple thing like round up. So whatever she was purchasing, it will put the change into a separate little pot. And it wasn't a lot. It was like, oh look, I've got an extra tenner in there. It was, and so it is, isn't it? It's simple
Yeah,
things like that to show that you don't have to do the big things. Start get into the habit of doing the small things. Or now
absolutely.
she's just about to start her new job, so hopefully now is the right time to get into the habit of putting a certain percentage away, and that
Yeah.
is it. Is because it is. It's only when we get out the habit. And do you find that most women, or most people, I would say, are just tending to live paycheck to paycheck. They are just,
100%.
there is no managing. It's just literally go until the money's run out, and then just hope you've got enough left to pay any extra bills. Um, so for people who are that are listening in, that do sort of feel like they're at that, what sort of things they can
To little story of how I started with this. So when I started to this whole world back in 2015, the ends were just about meeting. We had a really big mortgage. It was 100% mortgage. We had 3 very small kids at the time. And, they were literally, what was coming in was going out. And it was a simple decision, first of all, for me to go, you know what, this is not acceptable. I need to find some way to turn this around to make this better. But there was nothing more coming in. So my attention was turned to what was going out and how could I clean that up. Now, at the time, I was we were living in Ireland at the time, so we were each taking out of the pot €20 each, so that we could, I don't know, a month buy a book or go for a coffee or whatever. Things were that tight, and I took that €20 and I put it away in some investments, and each month I would. So I had nothing for books or any kind of little luxuries like that for myself at the time. But that commitment of taking that small amount of money and putting it away every month, very quickly that €20 grew. If I got money for birthdays or Christmas or whatever, it went into that pot too. And that pot started to mushroom before I knew it, purely by me installing that habit and showing respect for my money, showing leadership for my money, and it started to expand quickly. And I see that time and time again with my women. A lot of them are UK based, and they set up an account where they put £25 away a month into little shares, and it does its thing. It's automated. So you don't need huge money. And what always happens, like you say, what comes in goes out. And everybody, from a data perspective, you'll see all the surveys saying the vast majority of people are one paycheck away from being broke. And that is a trend, that has been something that's been around. And I've personally experienced it too. The more I earned, the more I spent, the more I earned, the more I spent. And that's the way it went. Unless you change your habits and you start installing new habits, like putting a small amount away, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's installing that habit. And when you see that amount going out every month, you think, okay, it'd be nice if I'd be able to increase that. Because I had a client recently, she wanted to cancel her savings. I was like, no, don't cancel it. Just drop it right down to the minimum. And when you're in a position, because if you cancel it, it goes out of your consciousness, and then it's less likely you're going to reinstall it. Leave it there at the absolute minimum. And when it comes, you're in a position to ramp it back up, you'll do that. But if you cancel it, it's gone. So simple little things, start those habits, and from little acorns, mighty oaks grow. And that is so true with money. So simple little thing, put a small amount away every month.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose we can all do it. It is just a matter of priorities, isn't it? Because if you can, waste it on a Deliveroo meal, well, rather than cooking in, it is, we do tend to find things when we actually need it, which just does always fascinate me. And that's where I do think that the mindset thing really is the most powerful thing, because it's interesting. I've always found it funny that people don't really want to invest into, invest in coaching, for instance, or mentoring or something, and yet they've probably got the latest iPhone or and you think, well, that's not really making you any money, whereas this could help you. But it's just perception, I suppose. It's how people perceive, and which ones are the priority, right?
Absolutely. Totally agree. The other thing I'd add into that is that I found really a key turning point was having a really clear vision of what it was that I was building. And I run through a little audio visualization that I have a couple of times a year, and it refreshes in my mind each time what it is, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and why I keep working and, taking the steps that I'm taking. Because sometimes, I just don't feel like doing what I need to do, but I have that vision in the back of my head, which I regularly refresh. And that almost has a magnetic effect of kind of pulling me through the sludge, or when I hit a bump and I'm going, okay, you need to get up and dust yourself off and go again, take time out if I need to. But that vision is almost magnetic and it's pulling me through. Whereas if you don't have a clear vision of what you're working towards, then you kind of have that sort of fruitless feeling of there's no point. I'm never going to get out of this hole. And I totally disagree with that. When you have a compelling vision and you see how simple steps, and that's a big part of what I do, is motivating and inspiring. Say, look, guys, you're looking at me now and thinking I've got it sorted. But let's wind it back. When I was in 2015, it was a mess, a holy mess, similar to where you are now. But €20 and my commitment to making things change, that they were fundamental to getting me where I am now. So anybody can do this. It doesn't matter what your current circumstances are. Everybody has the possibility to turn things around. It just needs your commitment, and a vision helps with that. I really find, from a
Oh,
mindset point of view, it keeps it alive in your body, and yeah, it's amazing.
absolutely. I mean, that just sort of reinforces the fact that with any, whatever the goal, whether it's starting a business, whether it's starting a work fitness regime or diet or whatever, your why has got to be bigger than. Otherwise, it's down to your excuses. Your excuses will win. So yes, I love what you just said there. Having that really strong why you're doing that, and yeah, at the end we are visual creatures. So yeah, it's at the end of the day, the truth is the truth is the truth. So in fact, everybody is saying the same thing, really. Things like having a vision board. You've just said there about having this real strong vision as to why, what's the end game, why are you going through this, and then having little checkpoints on the way to see that actually you are making progress. I mean, yeah, so it's funny that it doesn't matter what you're talking about, whatever the goal is, whether it is financial, business, relationship, whatever, you've got to have a strong goal. It's got to be a visual goal. It's got to be a big why. It's got to be then emotion attached to it. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. You're going to find every other excuse. And yeah, I just find it absolutely fascinating that it is the right thing because everybody is saying it, and they're coming from totally different industries here, and they're
Yeah,
all saying the same thing. Absolutely
agreed.
fantastic. So, if you haven't worked out your why, really think about it, guys. What is your big why? And yeah, start with a vision board. What do you want to do with that money that you're putting away? What's the end game? So for you, so can you go into a little bit more detail? Tell us a little bit more about your journey from financial desperation to financial wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to add to what you've said there, Karen, I always find a huge chunk of people are, whilst I always do the vision with them, the other piece I always do as well is I get them to lean into the pain, and they resist that regularly. But
Oh
it's like,
yeah,
no, I have a series of questions which I make them work through. And I do it myself regularly as well. It's to remind myself of, if I don't keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to end up somewhere I really don't want to be, and I definitely don't want my kids to be. So I need to keep doing this. So I find touching into the pain as well of it is really, really important to motivate ourselves. And often, as humans, we respond better to pain than we do pleasure. We wait until we're in the pit to actually spring forward and actually do something. Whereas where we're sailing along, we're like, yeah, it's fine, don't need to do
yeah,
anything. And then we hit a wall, and it's like, oh no, what do I do? Okay, so we need to leave in the pain. So I always bring that in. So I was in pain, in deep pain in 2015, and I thought the outlook just looked bleak, grim, depressing. Three small kids, looking up to me and thinking, man, what kind of life am I going to be able to give them? I need to do better. I can do better. I came from a banking background, so you would think I would have been, had a good handle on numbers. I did to a degree, but I didn't understand how money worked, how I could make money work for me better. And that I needed to be educated about, because I didn't have that from my upbringing. It was always from a scarcity and robbing Peter to pay Paul and that kind of setup. So and anybody around me, the vast majority of my close family and friends, nobody had really good, healthy, wealthy habits. So I wanted to learn. So I got myself a mentor. I started with a book, amazing book called The Wealth Chef by Anne Wilson. It's available on Amazon, and she's a superb mentor and really inspiring lady from South Africa. And I started working with her book first, and then on her course. And I just 100%, because of the extreme pain I was experiencing at the time, I just fully committed to it. And as soon as as I sign up to something, it's like I give it 110%. And I just did everything she told me to do. She told me at one point to put I remember getting a Carling can, filling it with water, putting my credit card into it and putting it in the freezer. And I was like, I don't use my credit card that much. I really don't think I need to do this thing. She was, just do it. And then I found myself, I wanted to use my credit card for something. I was like, I think it was something on Amazon. And I was like, okay, well, if you want to use it, then you're going to have to take it out. You can't put it in the microwave because it's in a metal can. So you're going to have to wait for it to defrost. So by the time the thing had defrosted, I had changed my mind and I didn't want it anyway. So it was like, what a smart thing to do. And I was resisting that, but I knew I was smart enough to know she knows what she's talking about. Just shut up, Caitriona, and do exactly what she says. So I did what she said. And I very rarely use my credit card now for flights and things like that I need insurance. So I took a mentor, followed her advice, and just made that commitment that, this pain was going to be short-lived and I was going to learn to do this better. And I very quickly started to understand that actually this big bad world that I was so afraid of and had no clue how to navigate, actually I got more and more confident and figured out, hang on, this is not the big mystery that surrounded it. This is actually really simple. You can really make it as complex or as simple as you like. And I always go for the simple option. I don't have time for faffing about with stuff. So I learned the shortcut ways. I automated stuff. And then very slowly the ship started to turn piece by piece, and I took back the reins with money and improved my relationship. And it's like anything, our relationship with food, our relationship with exercise, it's not like something that's done and you tick it off the list. It's a continual thing that you constantly check in with, and you make sure, okay, well, what do I need to do next? And there are always things that I need to do as well, I think, as we all do on those various fronts. And so it's just a commitment now with my vision and my pain locked in of what I want, what I don't want, and then just on a regular basis taking those baby steps. And one thing that holds a lot of people back, they're like, I don't have loads of time to give this. And I'm like, okay, look, bear with me. I was, 2015, I was sleep deprived off my head. I had basic mental function. There was lots of days I actually couldn't get in the car because I wasn't safe to drive. Yet I was able to spend maybe half an hour, 40 minutes on an evening, reading a few pages of a book, figuring out, okay, I need to send an email. I need to fill in that form. I need to do simple little things. This did not take me hours and hours and hours or days. I didn't have that time and I didn't have the mental capacity to give it, but it took my commitment and it took a smaller number of baby steps to start, turning the ship around. And bit by bit, the more steps I took, the more progress I saw. And that buoyed me up to keep going and then to go for bigger goals and bigger goals. And now I'm at a space where I made a commitment 2 years ago to get into property in a bigger way. And now in the last 10, 11 months, we've acquired 6 properties, which are all bringing us in £500 each per month per unit. And that's a source of income that I have very little input in, which again is my way of doing it hands off. Somebody else is taking care of it. And it's like, okay, if you told me 2 years ago that I'd be in a position like that now, I would have said, no way. I have no idea how I'd even do that. But it started with €20. It started with me deciding, right, I need to stop this pain and I need to give a better example to my kids. And I just decided, right, I need to learn this stuff and learn it good. And so I did. So that's a little bit of my story.
But what you just said there, again, so listeners, what did you do? You realised that you needed the right guidance and you found yourself a coach.
Absolutely key.
I do truly, I find it fascinating again that we've almost all been conditioned, and women, sorry guys, I'm sure I might be being biased. I know women think like this a lot, that I don't know, that there's almost some kind of shame to ask for help. And I think more so around money. And I would definitely say that the guys actually probably are worse, maybe. Which is why I think the guys have struggled over the last couple of years and why there's been some terrible decisions being made, because they didn't feel like they could ask for help, which is tragic to me. But it's so bizarre that we somehow, and can't even work out. I don't even know where this has come from. That we think that in some way, asking for help, asking to get a coach means that we failed in somehow. And that is madness, because you're going to go, your plumbing needs sorting out. You're going to go to somebody who's had some kind of plumbing training, not just your next door neighbour who might have a hammer next door. You want somebody that knows. So you want to go to a doctor that has studied, right? You're not going to go to somebody. So it seems a bit of a sort of contradiction. But why so many people sort of shy away from doing exactly what you've done, but yet look, here you are, it worked.
Yeah.
Go to the experts that know what they're doing and can give you advice. I mean, I know, free experts everywhere, and very different levels of expertise, but there is no shame in asking for help, because yeah, we don't know everything. I know my subjects, but there's a million things that I know absolutely nothing about. So if I needed help in that area, I'm going to go to somebody that is an expert in that. But why do you think this? Where can you think where this sort of comes from? Or do you think a lot of women do sort of think that way, that they somehow failed if they actually asked?
Yeah, I have personally have had the same experience as well. I'm not great, or used to be great at asking for help. And I would always try and be independent, and it's fine, whatever. But I'm definitely in recovery on that, and learning to do it differently. But for me, I didn't have anybody around me, and I recognized that I didn't have the wherewithal, and it was coming across a mentor who, just with her openness and her honesty of her own struggles, she just inspired me. And I just thought, I could see she was several steps ahead of me, and I thought, okay, I want to learn from somebody like you. The other side of it, I think, is a big concern, is there are so many, con artists out there. There's so many times that people have been done over, paid for money and then not delivered on what they felt that they were signed up to. So that makes them scared, I think, to make commitments like that. So, and I think when you're investing in anything, any kind of personal development, doing your due diligence is really important. Talking to other people who have been through the programs, checking out the testimonials, checking out the person's credentials. Are they who they say they are? Because I think a lot of people, especially online now, they've been burned and they're very, very cautious. So I think it's a combination of a number of factors. And yeah, it's a tough one. And yeah, I do think the guys probably struggle with it more so, because I think they often think that they possibly have the answers, and they do. It's a sign of weakness if you ask for help or you show that you don't
Mm,
know. Whereas I think women are less concerned with that side of it, but they just want to be able to do themselves and whatever. So yeah, it's a
mm.
challenge. But I think, what the more and more they experience the pain of it, the more likely they are to lean that way. But and I wish and I hope every day that people don't wait to get to that pain point to work with me, or to whoever they need to work with, to just do it now. But unfortunately, the vast majority of clients I work with, they're in pain when they come to me, and it's like, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But I think it's just a human nature thing, and
It is. I don't
mm,
think that's ever going to change. I have it the same. It's sometimes people are just too comfortable. So then, again, it's priorities, isn't it? So, oh, okay, well, I'd like to start this business, but well, I don't really need it. I'm doing okay. And like you say, pain is a far stronger motive. And well, the fear of loss, is so much bigger than, which is, again, it just seems so backward, doesn't it? Rather than having your goal as this thing isn't as strong as the fear of losing that. And so sometimes, not always, um, for some people, yes, being a little too comfortable can actually be a dangerous place to be.
it can. It can, and you can see, and which is why I think there's so many inspiring rags to riches story, or challenging stories. When you come from a challenging set of circumstances or backgrounds, it's those people who often hit rock bottom who then just catapult, to great heights, because they've been there, they've been at rock bottom, and they figured out, well, there is another way, and they just become so motivated to get out of that. And people love those kind of stories. So, I always share my personal experience and, that of my clients. It's really, really inspiring to share those stories because, yeah, we do. I mean, life is not a rose garden for us all. We all have challenges to varying degrees at varying times. And yeah, just there's no shame absolutely in asking for help. We all have our own area of expertise. And if whatever, finances or fitness isn't yours, well then, bring in the experts, and you can do it in a very light touch way, follow somebody on their page or whatever, and get value from the contents that they're giving out. Or if they have an ebook or a book or whatever, invest, like I did, in a small way with them first, and get a feel for that person if you're looking to work with them, to see, are they my kind of person? Could I see myself working with them? Do I like the kind of content? Do I like their values, their style, whatever? And then, just go from there. You don't have to like throw big money straight off with somebody that you're not quite sure of. And I always, with all my financial stuff and just life in general, and women are really good at this when they listen to it, is their intuition. Always trust your intuition. Your intuition never, ever puts you wrong, whether it's money or life choices, whatever it is. Always listen to that, because the countless times myself, I have ignored my intuition to my peril. Always. Anytime I lean into it and I listen, never make a rush decision, sleep on it if I need to. It always, my inner wisdom is just invaluable, and women are really, really good at that. And that's a strength that they don't use often enough, I think.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And I think even just last week we're sort of really having that same conversation, that we have, we really need to remember to trust that gut instinct, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. I mean, whether that, and that could be considered a little bit woo woo, whatever it is that your inner voice, your inner spirit, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter what it's called, because it is what it is, and it is always right. And I loved that piece of advice about putting it in the freezer, because, again, in a way, that's going back to that, isn't it? Because rather than having an instant emotional reaction to something and immediately wanting to do it, it's I suppose all the old adages come out. I suppose this is why our parents would say, count to 10, if you're in a heated exchange, because it gives you a chance to, and then I suppose that it is that inner, it's that reasoning factor, whether it's your inner voice or whatever, rather than you being reactory. I think that, what a brilliant piece of advice. So guys, if you're struggling, go and get your cards. Mind you, the trouble is you've got them on your Apple phone now and your wallet and things like that. It's not quite so easy, but go and put them in the freezer if you want.
Yeah.
Because
Or
yeah,
remove, delete the apps, delete
delete,
Amazon, delete eBay, delete them off your phone. And if you have to go through your PC, it's sure.
count to 10. Now,
Yeah.
do you still want it? I mean, I suppose again, it's the same thing with yeah, with eating. Do you really want that cake, or you just reacting to the look of it or the smell of it? Calm down, have a little think. Are you sure? Have a glass of water. Now, are you sure you want it?
Yeah.
It's so funny that it really is just that it's all the same things. So, what would be your top tips for financial wellness? And what's your sort of description? What would you call? Where's the level?
Well, I think financial wellness is I think it's a bit like parenting advice. I would never advise somebody as to what their financial wellness should be. That's always an inside job. So when I start working with clients, I get them to lean into that personally, because their idea of financial wellness and mine could be vastly different, or there could be similarities. And for a lot of clients I work with, I'm always surprised as to how simple their version of financial wellness. It doesn't involve private jets and yachts and whatever. And if it did, that's fine. But a lot of women actually just want simple things like having enough money in the bank to choose whether they want to work or not, to choose to travel or to buy the things that they desire, to buy the things for their loved ones that they desire. So it's often something that's very simple, and it's always by their definition, never mine. So that's kind of the first pieces. And just generally, I think what I always say, I have 5 pillars to financial wellness is the basis of what I teach. But what I always say to anybody I work with is, when you're looking at your money stuff and immediately where your biggest pain point is right now. And I would always say, I've shared lots of different tidbits during the call, but the biggest thing I would say is when you think about your money stuff, what's causing you the most pain? Sort that out. Take that one thing, whatever it is. And, we mentioned a kind of a little while back around, Deliveroo or whatever. To me, a big piece of my relationship with money is budgets. And often people associate budgets with restrictive, scarcity, not feeling nice. We just want to buy whatever we want to buy, whenever we want to buy. I still don't do that. I have kind of some play money, whatever, I spend on whatever I want. But I have budgets for everything, absolutely everything. Eating out, food budget, absolutely everything I use, I have a budget for and I track it. But it's not something that I feel restrictive about. To me, it's boundaries. It's boundaries like I have with my relationships, with my exercise, with my food, with anything I have. Money needs boundaries too. Otherwise, it just runs amok, and what comes in will be what goes out, unless you kind of saddle up to it and go, okay, well, I want to change this dynamic. What can I do? So budgets is something that I often encourage people to start with that and just familiarize yourself. We countless times see on the television programs when they do those food shops, the person on TV will say, how much do you think you're spending on food? And they will give a figure, and it's always like significantly higher, the actual figure, because we actually have little idea. But if you start tracking that, that's a first step to improving your relationship with money. And the more attention and care you pay for it, the more it cares for you back. So back into that woo-woo relationship stuff again. So that would be my tip, is to look at your money stuff and see what's causing you the most pain right now, and do something about whatever it is that's causing you the most pain. Maybe if Amazon is causing you pain, or eBay, take off the apps. Find some way to make yourself jump through an extra hoop or two to get whatever it is you want. Allow yourself that time to count to 10 or whatever, and see, and you'll slowly see habits shifting. But always trust your intuition on this stuff. It always sets you right. And actually, on that point, I wanted to say is that's always been the woo-woo category, but more and more scientific data is coming out around that, showing the number of neural pathways that we actually have in the intestines. So now it's actually the science is getting into it. So it's like, well, it's less in the woo-woo. Top, sure. To me, I don't really care. I just know that it works, and I know there's huge value in it. So I just pay attention to it. But for those who are more influenced by science, your gut is now being shown to be something scientifically that is advising you much more so than your brain. So listen to it. It always sets you right.
Yeah, I mean, and I do. I love it when they, you do see something to sort of validate.
Into
Blind faith in the woo woo is a little bit too much for them. So when you hear that something's been finally validated, something that you knew anyway, but okay, for those that need that feel that they need that, then that's always brilliant. So okay, so I mean, I've got to admit, my hands are terrible. Always have been absolutely terrible. I'll spend what I need to spend, and if I'm coming short, then I just need to make more. So maybe I need to start listening to this and actually keep the budget, keeping the budget. Oh my goodness! But yes, otherwise, yes, things aren't going to change, are they? So
but that's amazing skill to have that you mentioned, Karen, because a lot of people will go into scarcity if you find that you're running out. But that's amazing way, like skill to have, to go, well, I just make more, and it is that simple. People go, oh, like, no, my salary is set. I'm like, no, there's always other ways. Because I had a client recently who started working with her in May, and she had just over £900 worth of credit card debt, and she was determined in the 90 days working together to get rid of it. And she made herself a little Excel spreadsheet and figured out if she was able to chip into it £10 a day. She'd have it cleared by the end of the 90 days. She became so obsessed with it because the chart was on her PC. She kept seeing it every day, and she started clearing the house out. She sold all sorts on eBay. She started finding more ways to generate money, and within 60 days, she'd blitzed the entire thing. Now, that was her, not me. I inspired and motivated her to do it, but she literally got the bit between her teeth, and she just ran with it. And we have such amazing power to generate money, like you've just said. You run out, then you just create it. And now she has that spare money, which she was using to service her debt, and she's got a pot saving towards property, which is something at the beginning of the course she never thought. She thought it was way outside her reach. And once she saw the power that she could do with 900 quid, which is not an insubstantial amount, she thought, wow, geez, if I can do that in 60 days, doing very simple things, what could I
There
do
you
over the
go.
longer term?
We
It's like,
all,
wow.
we all, I'm sure, waste an awful lot. I mean, I know I have a very bad habit of doing that. I know there's lots of ways where I could really cut back actually, and put money aside, because but again, it's down to priorities. I think, oh, I can't afford that, but yeah, I can afford a £10 bottle of prosecco most nights. So, it's coming from somewhere. Like, you can do this. There are always things. However, I suppose the issue would be with people where they do really feel that there is a ceiling to the amount of money they can make. I don't know about you, but my sort of um, as a coach, I think the biggest challenge I have with people is, if it is relating to business, is the fact that I find it more of a challenge with people who are so used to being an employee, because they have a very fixed mindset. Whereas somebody who's owned their own business in any way, whatever way, whether it's bricks and mortar, whether it's an online business, they tend to have more of a growth mindset. And it just goes to show the difference of the two. But it is down to the employees perceive, again, you and me, we know, like you said, your client could still go around and find things to put on eBay to sell clothes. I've had people selling clothes in their closet that they've not worn, and there's always something that you can do if you really want to. But again, it's just it is priorities. But the bonus of somebody with an entrepreneurial mindset is that, okay, how do I create more? What can I do to increase? What do you find that working with clients that are one or the other, there's a difference in, not talking about the money they're making, I'm just talking about their mindset, the way they view their world.
Yeah, I definitely, and having made that transition myself recently from being in a relationship where it was a salary that was main source of income to now flicking to variable income, there's a challenge in that, because it's not static like your salary that's paid in monthly, and roughly what's coming in. You have to generate that money, but also with that challenge comes opportunity, because you're 100% in the driving seat. And if you decide, you come up with a new product or a new idea or angle or whatever, you have the power to create way more than you would, but you don't have that consistency. And that's quite an important skill to have, and what I'm only learning myself now, because I've never been in the position of variable income up until now. So it's about trying to figure a way to iron those waves out. So putting money away. So I would always encourage people to have an emergency pot. So mine is 3 months. So I've got 3 months cover worth of my essential expenses. So that if something happens, I was out of action with illness or whatever, I know that I've got that comfort blanket of 3 months that things will be covered, whilst I figure out plan B. So that's really important. So there's definitely a difference on a couple of fronts between kind of being employed and having that variable income of an entrepreneur. But there's disadvantages and advantages to both, and whichever side you sit on, it's about appreciating that and making most of the advantages and trying to minimize the disadvantages, whichever side you sit on.
Yeah, sure. So what would you consider, for the listeners, what would be what's the most common mistakes that people make in financial planning?
Um, I would say it's that they assume that they don't have the time to do it, and that it takes ages to sort things out. And it's the objection that I get over and over again. I just don't have the time to do this, and I'm like, well, as you've said a number of times, it's not a case of time; it's a case of priorities. And when you get to that really extreme pain point, you'll make time, because we all know, if you have a family member who becomes ill, amazingly, you've now have space in your schedule to do whatever you need to do to care for that person, because they are a priority to you. But it's the exact same thing, be it our fitness or our nutrition or our money. When you make it a priority, you have the time, and this does not need no more than exercise or nutrition or any of those things do. They don't need hours and hours of our time. They just need some education to figure out how to do it better, and just the commitment to just do it. So that is the most common obstacle or pushback I get from clients around it.
Yeah, I suppose it is going back to the same old. Um, Quite often, I suppose it is sort of linked to the whole instant gratification era that we find ourselves in. Is that people may want the end result, but actually, the truth be known, they don't want anything in their lives to change. They want to carry on about their days in the same way, but still get a different result, which is madness. But
Yeah.
quite often, they're resisting, not even, it's just the fact that it's doing something different. It's just the change is the big thing as opposed to the thing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Isn't it Einstein who has that famous quote of, madness or insanity is the definition of doing the same thing day in, day out and expecting a different result. And we're like, yeah,
Yeah,
but that's what most people do. And
it,
it takes back to that pain again. It takes that pain often to instigate the change. And I guess we have to wait for the pain. For me, I know I did a webinar last week around festive financials, because coming into the festive period, it can be a source of huge stress for women. The sign up was pretty okay, but the turn up on the night, negligible. I know for a fact when I run it again in January, so many people will be in extreme pain. Then I will get much better take up, because
ah,
they are feeling it. Trying to get them prepped in advance to actually avoid the pain, not going to happen. Picking them up when
mm,
they've got the credit card bill, they've opened their bank statement and seen how overdrawn they are. Okay, then we'll have an easier time of going, look, guys, you need to sort this out. Please don't, shove them in a drawer. Just deal with it, because it's only going to get worse if you don't deal with it. So back to that pain again.
yeah. And that is, it does feel that, I mean, I'm glad my girls are grown now, because I think it is when they're younger, it is this, you feel like you should be buying them all this stuff. And if you don't, you feel huge amounts of guilt or shame because you haven't bought them all this stuff. And the fact is, when you do, I mean, half the stuff doesn't get used. It really is totally overdone. I think it's half a thing when it's kids. It's just the joy of opening stuff. So I can remember I lived in my youngest was born in Portugal. We lived out there for 8 years, and there were times when things were tough. Um, and so yeah, Christmas you take up a lot of time wrapping like just silly little things, just so that they would have the joy of opening something, because you couldn't afford the big presents. But I think in England or the States, I'm sure it's probably the same there as well. That it's the actual peer pressure, rather than just as long as at the end of the day, Christmas is a family meal. It's a Sunday dinner, for crying out loud. It's a Sunday dinner with your family. It doesn't have to be the big spend that is a complete waste. I'm sure I do. I feel blessed that I don't have a TV anymore. I haven't had one since last Christmas. So I don't see the adverts. I think that is massive, absolutely massive, because when you watch the telly, it's just it's in your face, isn't it? There's no escape. So especially if you are struggling and not wanting to say anything about it, you'd feel maybe a little bit more pressured into overspending and getting that credit card out just to just to get through. And then, yeah, come January, they're on the phone to you, Caitriona.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, yeah, you've said the Joneses. I did a post on this recently, and it got a good reaction. They've so much to answer for, and they cause so much trouble in houses across the world. And it really comes back to, like you said, you have the shame and the guilt of maybe not feeling that you're not giving enough. But then you see the aftermath. It's they probably play with the box the stupid thing came in, when they're smaller. So we made a conscious decision at the very beginning when our kids were small. I just got this, and I saw the waste, and I just thought, I am not going down that route. And whilst we were able to manage what we were doing, then there was family and friends who were just lobbing stuff left, right, and center. And it was like, whoa, the plastic and the consumption, and that's a massive bugbear of mine. But it's really, again, leaning into yourself. And this was a big part of the webinar, was like, what would your ideal Christmas day look like? And it's not about the stuff. It's about how you feel, and how's that, where does that come from? It's about spending the day with people that you love, and having a really enjoyable experience. And there's probably I always have a really good sense, and mothers as well, they're really good at this stuff. They know what are the little things that their kids really want. Like, my guys will be, from kind of here on out, I'll be scribbling down little things that they'll mention. Oh, I'd like that, that looks nice, whatever. And they're small little things. They might see like a little notebook or a particular pen or pencil, little things. And it's those things that, to me, that they're consumable and that they will actually use, that I most like to give. A book, there's always a book, a DVD, things like that. And they don't have to be super expensive. We have a budget per child for Christmas. Last year we decided, we had a tough year with COVID. We lost our income for 9 months, and there was no furlough here. So we'd had a pretty tough 8-9 months, and we did a bigger spend for Christmas consciously, but it still had boundaries and limits. But generally we have a relatively small budget of about £50 per child per that covers a Christmas present from mum and dad and a Christmas present from Santa, and that is it. So and still, with that amount, we can buy them so much stuff, and never that feeling of shame about, oh my god, we should have been able to get that. It's like, no, okay, yourself intuitively, blocking out all the noise, the marketing commercial stuff, that what they get real joy from, as their parent, what they absolutely love. And it could be an experience. I love experiences where you get to do something especially together, and you're making a memory. It's not just a piece of plastic.
Ah,
It's something that you'll treasure. They're amazing gifts. And as my group of friends as well, since I moved here, we make little boxes of different things. So, and it's always kind of not quite a competition, but it's like, ooh, what'll be in their box this year? Like, I've got some wild blueberry gin brewing at the moment, and little things that don't cost a lot to do, but they're made with love, and it's
you'll
something that
remember them.
you'll enjoy. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, you remember those things. Yeah, I'm definitely all for the experience, all for the doing things, because those are the things. Yeah, I can't even remember. I'm just trying to think what I even bought my daughters last year. You just can't remember it because it's just
Yeah,
a thing. Whereas, where you took them somewhere, or you had a day out somewhere, you went to a hotel or whatever,
yeah,
you're always going to remember that. Yeah, absolutely,
absolutely.
all for that. So, for the listeners out there, if they would like to get in touch with you because they feel they need a little bit of help with this budgeting malarkey, and maybe some investing and actually turning things around for them, what is the best way, for those just are listening, to get hold of you?
Well, my Facebook page is 90 Days to Financial Wellness. So I share my tips and lives and lots of resources on that page. So follow me there, and you can pick up more of my stuff. And also, if you're on LinkedIn, just follow me at Caitriona Ellis. I do the same. Share all my resources, videos, etc. there as well. So whichever platform you're on, they're the two main ones that I operate on.
Fantastic. So, what do you offer? Do you have some kind of monthly program, yearly program? How do you work?
I've got three programs at the moment: 30, 60, and 90 days to financial wellness, and they cover it to varying degrees. 90 days is my flagship program, where we go into the nitty gritty, and they're big transformations happen in that space, and that's open at the moment for enrollment. I've just been accredited as CPD accredited provider, which is now means that it's all the programs are going through global certification, which is very exciting. So you'll be seeing the programs on Udemy and Teachable and Groupon in the coming months. So yeah, lots of options, and I do a free event as well, which I'll be running in January, hopefully, called Financial Wellness Week. And I'm very aware I don't ever want money or the lack thereof for women who are following me to prevent them from making progress. So I run a free event 2-3 times. I've run it twice this year already, and it is jammed with very simple little workshops where, I give you a little workbook and you show up on a live call and I answer your questions, teach a little bit, answer questions, etc. And you walk away from that week in a very different space. And that's always free, because I don't want to exclude anybody who genuinely doesn't have money to work with me, because that's something that I'm really passionate about. And being realistic, not everybody does. And that's just the way of the world. So I want to make sure that I always provide for that chunk of women who just genuinely, need help and don't have the wherewithal to do it. So I run that a few times a week. So if you're following my page, or a few times a year, if you're following my page, you'll see details of the next Financial Wellness Week, which will probably be January time.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Caitriona. Brilliant advice for anybody listening that maybe the pain is just starting to get a little bit too much, to let you know that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.